Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vishwodbhav Sthana Nirodha Karmate. Hyakartur Angikritam Apya Apavratah. Yuktam na chitram tvayi karya karane.
युक्तं न चित्रं त्वयि कार्यकारणे
Sarvatmani Vyatirikte cha vastutah.
सर्वात्मनि व्यतिरिक्ते च वस्तुतः.
O Lord, although you are completely detached from the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material world, and are not directly affected by these activities, they are all attributed to you. You do not wonder at this, for your inconceivable energies perfectly qualify you to be the cause of all causes. You are the active principle in everything, although you are separate from everything. Thus, we can realize that everything is happening because of your inconceivable energy. So, Maya Dhakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam, Krishna is saying. So, the material energy is acting under the direction of the Supreme Lord. So, even though the Supreme Lord is not the direct cause of anything, he is the indirect cause. He is the primeval cause of everything. Material energy is emanating from the Supreme Lord. It is agitated by the Supreme Lord, and thus it is acting. And through the three modes, the material energy is continuously in action and reaction of the living entity's desires. So therefore, even though Lord is not directly causing anything to move, he is the indirect cause. Text 6. Vedan yugante tamasa tiraskritan
वेदान् युगान्ते तमसा तिरस्कृतान्
rasatalad yo nraturanga vigraha
रसातलाद् यो नृतुरङ्गविग्रहः
pratyadade vaya kavaye bhiyachate
प्रत्याददे क्वयि कवये अभिज्ञाचते
tasmai namaste vitathe hitaya iti.
तस्मै नमस्ते अथ हिताय दीति.
I would like to read.
I can read for you.
Yes, please.
Good.
Okay, I'll read. Translation. At the end of the millennium, ignorance personified assumed the form of demons, stole all the Vedas and took them down to the planet of Rasatala. The Supreme Lord, however, in his form of Haigreva, retrieved the Vedas and returned them to Lord Brahma when he begged for them. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Supreme Lord, whose determination never fails. Purport. Although Vedic knowledge is imperishable, within this material world it is sometime manifest and sometime not. When the people of this material world become too absorbed in ignorance, the Vedic knowledge disappears. Lord Haigreva or the Lord Matsya, however, always protected the Vedic knowledge, and in due course of time, it is again distributed through the medium of Lord Brahma. Brahma is the trustworthy representative of Supreme Lord. Therefore, when he again asked for the treasure of Vedic knowledge, the Lord fulfilled his desire. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Krishna is saying, Vedanta Krit Ved Vid Eva Chaham. Vedanta Krit. I am the author of the Vedas, and I am alone to be known from the Vedas. So when the living entities become too desirous of material enjoyment, the Vedic knowledge disappears. Actually, if we see Bhagavad Gita, there's a very common myth that is attached with the teachings of Srila Prabhupada or with the Gaudiya teachings. When Krishna says Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, so it is sometimes misinterpreted that Krishna is denouncing the Vedas. Actually, Krishna never denounced the Vedas, not even as Buddha. Even as Buddha, he is not saying that Vedas are false. What he's saying is that Tathagat is above the Vedas. And as Krishna, when he says Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, so Krishna is advising Arjun to be above the modes of nature. He's not advising Arjun to avoid the Vedas altogether. In fact, in the whole of third chapter, Krishna is advising Vedic sacrifices to Arjun. The understanding from this chapter and this verse of Bhagavad Gita is that one has to rise above the modes of nature, and then one will see the proper perspective of the Vedas. Vedas are not meant to delude the living entity, even though they mainly deal with the subject matter of knowledge and action, karma and jnana. Still, Krishna is not denouncing the Vedas, he is telling Arjun to be above the three modes. Because as soon as Arjun is situated in transcendence, he will see the purpose of the Vedas very clearly. In the Vedas, activities mainly related to karma and jnana are related. So one may mistakenly think that actually Vedas are talking only about karma and jnana. But if one is properly situated in knowledge, he will see. Like we see the Bhagavad Purana, which is an extraction of the Vedas, it is actually talking only about transcendence. That's why it's called Amala Purana. So this Vedic knowledge is meant for all classes of people actually. Vedas are talking about the subject matters of karma and jnana so that people situated in all the modes of nature can benefit. Those who are situated in the mode of ignorance, they cannot be elevated directly to Prem Bhakti. They cannot be elevated to the top, to the direct worship of the Supreme Lord. They must be guided according to their nature. So Vedas prescribe different types of activities. Or those who are of impersonal mindset, they cannot be directly prescribed, they cannot be directly taught to worship the personality of Godhead. So therefore the activities of Gyan are specified. So as Srila Prabhupada summarizes the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, he explains that in the beginning there is Karma Yoga. The result of Karma Yoga is Gyan, knowledge. And the result of knowledge is detachment from material nature. And the result of detachment is Bhakti. So by acting on the platform of fruitive work, the living entity will suffer the reactions. For example, he will earn wealth, it will be lost. He'll create a family, the family will be lost. So eventually he will learn that this is just a source of misery. So he'll be situated on the platform of knowledge. He would want to know what is the absolute truth. So through the studies of Vedas and through his mental speculations, he'll arrive at the platform of impersonal Brahman. On the platform of impersonal Brahman, he'll undergo many difficulties. Eventually, if he is purified enough, he will come to the platform of worshipping the personality of Godhead. So Krishna says, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanvan Mam Prapadyate. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Sarvam Iti, everything, the end of all. Sarvam Iti, the end of all. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Such a great soul would be very rare indeed. He also says, Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschin Mam Veti Tatvata. Yatatam Api Siddhanam. Amongst those who are practicing, amongst those, Yatatam Api Siddhanam, amongst those who are accomplished, Kaschin Mam Veti Tatvata. Hardly anyone knows me in reality. So after many, many births of hardships in karma and jnana, one will actually arrive at the platform of the personality of Godhead or the platform of devotion. So this knowledge is coming through from the Vedas only. Like we see, for example, the religions like Christianity in general, the Abrahamic religions. Srila Prabhupada explains that these religions are meant for meat eaters. Because one who's consuming meat really has no consciousness to understand Godhead. What to speak of personality of Godhead. He has no understanding. He cannot. So therefore, activities of karma are prescribed to purify them a little bit. If they strictly follow the rules and regulations of their respective religions, they would be elevated in their position in the next birth. They may not arrive at the platform of pure devotion directly, but they will at least be elevated in their platform of gross ignorance. So in this way, Vedas are prescribing various varieties of religious processes to elevate the living entity. And eventually one will arrive at the conclusion that one has to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, by acting on the platform of Jnana, one arrives on the platform of Brahman. One arrives at the platform of Brahman. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kamshati. Samah sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labte param. So after being situated on the platform of Brahman, then one can worship Krishna. Then one can actually practice devotional service. So if one still has some material desires in the heart, one should immediately understand that he is not on the platform of bhakti. It's just on the sadhana platform. So as soon as these attachments are destroyed from the heart, then one can actually practice bhakti. So the Lord protects the Vedic knowledge because it is for the benefit of mankind at large. So one may think, why is Lord protecting the Vedic knowledge? He could have protected just the Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads. But Lord is protecting entire Vedas because that knowledge is needed for elevation. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? We continue. Text 7. Hari Varshe Chapi Bhagavan Nar Hari Rupenaste Tad Rupa Grahana
वर्षे चापि भगवान् नरहरिरूपेण तद्रूपग्रहण
निमित्तम उत्तरत्राभिधास्ये तद्दयितं रूपं महापुरुषगुण
निमित्तमुत्तरात्राभिधास्ये तद्दयितं रूपं महापुरुष
भाजनो महाभागवतो दैत्य दानव कुल तीर्थीकरण शीलाचरित
भजनो महाभागवत दैत्य दानव कुल तीर्थीकरण शीलचरित
प्रहलादो व्यवधानानन्य भक्ति योगेन सह तद्वर्ष पुरुषैर उपास्ते इदं चोदाहरति
प्रहलादो व्यवधानान्य भक्ति योगेन सह तत्पुरुषे रूपास्ते इद चौदहरति.
Hare Krishna. Translation purport by Sri Prabhupada. Translation. Sukdev Goswami continued. My dear King, Lord Narasimhadev resides in the tract of land known as Hari Varsa. In the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I describe to you how Prahlad Maharaj caused the Lord to assume the form of Narasimhadev. Prahlad Maharaj, the topmost devotee of the Lord, is a reservoir of all the good qualities of great personalities. His character and activities have delivered all the following members of his demonic family. Lord Narasimhadev is very dear to this exalted personality. Thus Prahlad Maharaj, along with his servants and all the dens of the Harivarsa, worships Lord Narasimhadev by chanting the following mantras. Purport. Jayadev Goswami stands prayers worshipping the incarnation of Lord Krishna, Keshav, contained his name in every stanza. For example, Keshav, Dhira, Narhari Rupa, Jai Jagadish Hari, Krishna Dharita, Maina Sarita, Jani Jagat Lisa Hari, and Keshava Dharita, Vamana Rupa, Jai Jagadish Hari. The word Jagdish refers to the proprietor of all the universe. His original form is the two-handed form of Lord Krishna, standing with the flute in the hands and engaged in tending the cows. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Chintamani Prakar Samdeshu Kalpvaraksa Laksh Prasita Surabhi Abhipadde Antram Lakshmi Sarira Vasant Sambhara Seve Amanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam Ahammadam. I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires in a abode built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purple trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of bodies of fortune. From this verse, we learn that Govinda or Krishna is the Adi Purusha, the original person. The Lord has innumerable incarnations, exactly like the innumerable waves of the flowing river. But the original form is Krishna or Keshav. Sukdev Goswami refers to Narasimhadev or Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj was put into great distress by this powerful father, the demon, Arnakashyapa, apparently helpless before him. Prahlad Maharaj called in the Lord, who immediately assumed the gigantic form of Narsimhadev, half lion and half man, to kill the gigantic demon. Although Krishna is the original person, one without a second, he assumes different forms just to justify the devotees or to execute a specific purpose. Therefore, Jayadeva Goswami always repeats the name of Keshava, the original personality of Godhead. In his prayers, describing the Lord's different incarnations for different purposes. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, you've done.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. So different forms of the Lord reside in different planets within this Bhumandala, within this planetary system. All of these forms of the Lord are reciprocating with specific desires or specific tastes of the devotees. In reality, I mean, see, we have to understand it this way. Many times devotees ask, or sometimes there's a misconception also amongst devotees, that if they worship a specific form of the Lord, will other forms become unhappy or offended? Or if they worship this form, this result will accrue, or this will happen, that will happen. So actually, at this stage of our devotion, everything is a speculation. When we see the form, when we hear the prayers of Maharaj Prahlad, or we hear the prayers of Gajendra, they are not really understanding which specific personality of Godhead they are referring to. And the Lord assumes a specific form which is exactly reciprocating with the mood of that particular devotee. So, in other words, actually, the Supreme Lord reciprocates exactly according to the desire of the worshipper. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamyaham. Mama vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. That every human being is acting specifically. The Lord is acting exactly according to the plan of the Lord. So if one is a gopi in the spiritual world, eventually that mood will also be revealed. Though at this stage, it's very hard to think that one would actually be a devotee, a gopi, and fallen in this condition of this world. But one has to understand that if one worships the Lord purely, the Lord reveals the Swarupa. So in this regard, there is a very interesting story of Anupam, who was the younger brother of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. So this Anupam traveled all the way from Bengal to Prayag to meet the brothers, to meet Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. And there, Rupa Goswami instructed him in the glories of Hare Krishna mantra for 3 days. And Anupam practiced it religiously. At the end of 3 days, however, he conceded to Rupa Goswami that he could not concentrate on the worship of Krishna, because every time he tried to chant, he could only envision the form of Lord Ram. So Rupa and Sanatan Goswami blessed him, and they told him, yes, that his specific position was as a pure devotee of Lord Ram. So we can see actually that when one chants, when one follows the process given by the spiritual master precisely, one's Swarupa is revealed. So Lord exists in infinite forms. These forms are continuously emanating from the Supreme Lord. So it's not that he specifically, he has limited forms. There is just 21 forms that we have studied in the Bhagavatam, or there are 10 main avatars. The innumerable forms the Lord has. Srila Prabhupada has already explained this in Bhagavatam. So these forms are innumerable. So according to a specific taste of the devotees, the Lord appears in that particular form. So what should be done specifically by the devotee? The devotee should specifically follow the instructions given by the spiritual master, just as we saw in the case of Anupam. One has to specifically follow the instructions of the spiritual master. So for example, meeting of a spiritual master is not really a coincidence. It is the will of the Lord. When the living entity has some inclination to understand the higher truths, the Lord manifests in the form of Guru. He manifests as Cheta Guru within the heart and guides the living entity at the lotus feet, towards the lotus feet of the spiritual master. And then the spiritual master gives the process by which the original Swarup of the living entity can be revealed. So this process is very mystical actually. It is, if you want to know the details, it is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, first chapter. This is explained in very much in details. But for the moment, we should understand that by strictly adhering to the rules and regulations given by the spiritual master, one specific Swarup will be revealed. And the form of the Lord that he is meant to worship, that will also be revealed. So we can see that even within this material world, the Lord is present in so many forms just to deliver the living entities. Hare Krishna. Is any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna.
No. Go ahead, Prabhuji. I'll ask later.
Prabhuji, in translation, first or second line, you can say, it is Hari Varsha. What is Hari Varsha?
Varsha means a planet. So Hari Varsha is the name of that planet. Like for example,
Varsha means planet. Okay.
Yeah.
It is Sanskrit word.
Yeah, Varsha means a planet.
It's okay.
Bharat Varsh, Ilamrit Varsh, Hari Varsh, Trikuta Varsha. So these are different Varshas, different planets.
Okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji, you have a question.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, we know that Lord has innumerable forms, but do all these forms have a separate abode in the spiritual world? Because we know that Lord Ram has Lord Ram has an abode and all, but the main, but like Lord Narasimhadev, Lord Vaman, do these also have separate abodes? Because we only hear of Vaikuntha planets, which are presided by Narayan with all different, with different names. But what about all these other forms?
All spiritual planets are Vaikunthas. Golok Vrindavan is also Vaikuntha. Without freedom from anxiety. So all the forms of the Lord have their specific planets. Some forms are existing within the material world, some are in, and practically all of them actually have origin in the spiritual world. They are all existing because living entities are innumerable, their desires are innumerable, and Lord reciprocates with all living entities. So forms of Lord are also innumerable.
So like those, so like Lord, for example, if you take Lord Narasimhadev has his own planet or his own abode. So those who are worshipping that, this form, they will go to his abode, which is also a Vaikuntha.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So we continue text 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Narsinghaya Namastejas Tejase Avir Bhava.
Om Namaste.
Vajra Nakha Vajra Damshtra Karmashayan Randhaya Tamo Grasa Om Swaha.
Vajra Karma Shanya Randhaya Tamo Grasa.
Abhayam Atmani Bhujishtha Om Kshom.
Abhyam Atmani.
Harry?
Yes, please.
Translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Narasimhadev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possesses nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activity in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. Perfect. In Srimad Bhagavatam 4.22.39, Sanat Kumar speaks the following words to Maharaj Prithu. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya karmashayam agrathitam udgrathayanti santa tadvanna rikta matayo yatato apiruddha shrotaganastam aranam bhaja vasudevam. Devotees always engaged in the service of the toes of the Lord's lotus feet can very easily become free from hard-knotted desires for fruitive activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, like the Gyanis and Yogis, cannot stop the waves of sense gratification, although they try to do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudev. Every living being within this material world has a strong desire to enjoy matter to its fullest satisfaction. For this purpose, the conditioned soul must accept one body after another, and thus his strongly fixed fruitive desires continue. One cannot stop the repetition of birth and death without being completely desireless. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami describes pure bhakti, devotional service as follows. Anyabhilashitas kshunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. Unless one is completely free of all material desires which are caused by the dense darkness of ignorance, one cannot fully engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, we should always offer our prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev, who killed Hiranyakashipu, the personification of material desire. Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means a soft cushion or bed. Materialistic persons always desire to make the body comfortable, and for this they require huge amounts of gold. Thus, Hiranyakashipu was the perfect representative of materialistic life. He was therefore the cause of great disturbance to the topmost devotee, Prahlad Maharaj, until Lord Nrsimhadev killed him. Any devotee aspiring to be free of material desires should offer his respectful prayers to Nrsimhadev as Prahlad Maharaj did in this verse. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Now, this is a very instructive verse. Actually, we are going to see this in great details in the 7th canto if we go up to that stage of reading. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya. So, okay, let's begin with the translation first, actually. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrsimhadev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possesses nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activity in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. So please kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activity. Very interesting point. So Krishna, like we discussed in the previous verse also, Krishna is saying, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. No, Krishna could have easily said that, there Veda Bhavarjuna. But Krishna is saying Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. So, like we discussed also, there are varieties of people and everyone must be catered to. The Supreme Lord is merciful. He is all merciful. He is merciful to everyone. And yet, he is instructing Arjun to neglect the instructions, to neglect the 3 modes of nature. So what is applicable? For example, 1 plus 2 equal to 3 is applicable in the first grade of schooling. It is very well applicable to a doctoral class of engineering. But in a doctoral class, student is not going to study 1 plus 2 equal to 3. He will be simply applying this knowledge as and when it is needed. So just like that, the knowledge of the Vedas is applicable according to circumstances. If the living entity is too fallen, he must follow those rules and regulations. For example, for those who are too lusty, Vivaha Yajna is prescribed. Okay, you can get married, you can have children, enjoy wealth. So all those are prescribed in the Vedas. And yet, in the higher grades in Upanishads, that is derided. So one may think that Vedas are contradicting themselves, or that the sages are contradicting the Vedas, or that the Supreme Lord himself is contradicting the Vedas. So no, it is not like that. It is depending on the level of advancement of the particular living entity. So the root cause of all the bondage is attachment to material nature. As we are seeing here, karmashayam grathitam udgrahayanti santa. So this hard-knotted desires for fruitive activities. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the purpose of Vedic injunctions is so that the living entity, by practicing these Vedic rules and regulations, will realize how tedious and uncomfortable they are. At the same time, he is also getting the knowledge of the Supreme. So by practicing the Vedic knowledge and by gradually purifying one's heart of these illicit desires, by constantly thinking about the Supreme Lord, one will be eventually able to give up these desires. So it is both. So the Vedic practices are both encouraging one to study the Supreme Lord, at the same time engaging one in such activities by which one is able to realize the difficult nature of this material world, the difficulty in performance of yajnas and all the charities and so many difficulties that one has to undertake. And by worshipping the Lord, one will gradually ascend in knowledge, eventually to the point that all these desires will vanish from the heart. So gradually, by engaging in devotional service, one is able to give up these desires. So Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya Rehina Rasvarjam Rasopyasya Param Drishtva Nivartate. The living entity by very nature is seeking pleasure. He's always, Anandamayobhyasat. He's seeking Anand actually. But in the absence of Anand, he's only finding Sukha or happiness. And then there is always distress. Sukha Dukkha. So Agama Paino Nityas. They are coming and going continuously. And in this way, the living entities always put in embarrassment or anxiety. So the only way is to acquire the higher taste. Param Drishtva Nivartate, by getting higher taste. So what is that higher taste? The devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So by gradually practicing the rules and regulations of Vedas, one will come to the platform of worshipping the Supreme Lord. At that stage, one will develop that higher attraction, and then this lower taste will vanish. So Rupa Goswami is advising like this, Anya Bhilashita Shunyam. So one should actually, in a higher stage of devotion, one has to give up these desires. Anya Abhilashitam Shunyam. So, like in the Vedic process of Varnashram, eventually when one reaches the end of Vanaprastha stage, one has to take sannyas. That may still be difficult because one has spent half of his life with his spouse. At that stage, one has to give up the company of his wife and children. So it is a bit difficult. Even though one has practiced that stage of devotion, one has reached that stage where one has already given up, practically given up association of family members, still some affection will remain. So that last stage of affection has to be cut. And that is still painful, but it has to be done. So therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami is advising that one who has reached the higher stages of devotion, he has to give up these things. Anya Vilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadhyanavritam. So from the speculative knowledge and for fruitive desire, of fruitive activities, one has to become free from them. So one may be already by practicing sadhana, one may have gradually reached that stage where he has given up material desires, but still at one point he has to cut them altogether. Or we can understand it this way, that by practicing sadhana, they become weaker and weaker. So when the sadhak realizes that these attachments have become weak enough, then he can cut them straight away. At that time, the pain would be tolerable. Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktir Uttama. So Anukulyena, which is very favorable to the Supreme Lord, very favorable to Krishna, that is called Bhaktir Uttama. Shilanam Bhaktir Uttama. That is called the highest, that is pure devotional service. So here also Prabhupada is explaining, unless one is completely freed from all material desires, which are caused by the dense darkness of ignorance, one cannot fully engage in devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, we should always offer our praise to Lord Nrsimhadev. So Lord Nrsimhadev is not worshipped because, hey, he's like a cat horse, because he's very powerful. No, he's specifically worshipped because we have demonic desires within our heart. So as we have discussed earlier also, Srila Prabhupada explains that fulfillment of material desires, even under the auspices of the Vedic rules and regulations, is still fraught with danger. Because there is a chance that any moment the senses can run loose. Any moment the senses can become loose and cause havoc. And actually, that's how the living entity falls down from the position of Brahma to human being down to animals also. Because every time you are engaging in sensuous activities, even though according to the rules and regulations of the Vedas, your attachment is increasing. And because attachment is increasing, there is a chance that any moment you could be overcome by the lower modes of passion and ignorance, and then neglect the Vedic injunctions altogether and become contaminated, and therefore fall down to the lowest regions. So therefore, there is at some point you have to physically cut off these desires. Therefore, we worship Lord Hiranyakashipu, who takes the form of a man lion. Because lion is a very powerful animal. And also, like, the symbology is also very important here. Hiranyakashipu. So he's a killer of Hiranyakashipu. So Hiranyakashipu. Hiranya means soft, Hiranya means gold, and Kashipu means soft cushion or bed. Or as Srila Prabhupada explains, comfortable life, or even sex life. So gold, comforts, and sex, this is what every materialistic person is looking for. So we are praying to Lord Nrsingadev to remove these desires from our heart, because these desires are holding us back in this material world. The Lord doesn't care whether we have the wealth of the world or we don't have any wealth at all. But the problem is, if we have attachment to the wealth of this world, then we become vimukha, we become turned away from the Lord, and that is our detriment. So that is the specific worship of Lord Nrsingadev, to remove these desires from our heart. The Hiranyakashipu is a perfect representative of materialistic life, and therefore we pray to Lord Narsingh to remove these desires from our heart. Hare Krishna. Is any questions or comments? Okay. We stop here today. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna.